what happens with Wallowa Lake is important for agriculture here, it's important for recreation, and it's important for tribes, it's just important for everybody. And so I thought this was a good opportunity to give the new guard at the dam a chance to tell us what they're doing and what they're thinking. And I think they've elected Joe Dawson spokesman, am I right? There he is. And all I got to tell you about Joe is I used to like to watch him play basketball and football. But then I thought he really got smart when he went to Gonzaga and started playing rugby. And
I came back with all my teeth.
And he came back with all his teeth. And we're plotting to get a rugby program together at Josephy High School. Joe Dawson.
Well, anyway, a brief history on the dam. It was constructed back in the late 1960s, 1918, and then it was expanded in the 1920s to what the maximum height could be. And anyway, in the 1970s is when the condition of the dam is when we started having to reduce it, and now we're at about 72% capacity. But to give you an overview of what the dam actually affects in Wallowa County, there's about 16,000 acres directly that are directly related, their storage rights are from the Wallowa Lake Dam and the lake itself. And overall, according to a study done by John Williams down at the OSU Extension Office, they estimate that the Wallowa Lake Dam affects about 37,000 irrigated acres throughout Wallowa County. So since we got down to a reduced level, there's been multiple efforts on how to rehab it. And there was multiple attempts and multiple studies done. And there's also, aside from the dam, we've done a lot of improvements within our own system as far as water conservation, and we've converted a lot from flood irrigation to pivots and sprinkler pipes. And because of that, we've been able to get by okay with the current condition that we're at, but we're still running into situations where we're running short, and it just depends on snowpack levels, which, as a lot of people in Eastern Oregon know, it's been really inconsistent. I mean, you take a year like 2015, where we were at 72% of snowpack capacity, and we had to end up dumping about 10,000 acre feet that May because of early runoff and early melting. And a lot of us are starting to feel the effects of that, of how do you plan forward with low snowpacks, and a lot of that is just infrastructure. And so anyway, we were planning several pipeline projects within our own system. Basically at the tail ends of the system, we found the most inefficient parts, and we got a lot of farmers who were willing to work with one another. And we started planning these pipeline projects. Well, they got to the point where, we were, different ditches were working on different pipelines, and we were trying to figure out the best way to organize ourselves for funding, for loans, and everything like that. So back in about 2015 is when we first had the discussion of, does our current structure make sense for our eligibility for these grants and loans? And our structure that we were in historically was the Associated Ditch Company. And the Associated Ditch Company was made up of 5 board members, and the 5 board members were presidents of the 5 individual ditches within our irrigation system. So those 5 ditches are Silver Lake, Farmers, Big Bend, Creighton, and Dobbin. So the presidents of those 5 individual companies made up the board of the Associated Ditch Company, which owned and operated the dam since 1916 on to 2015, or 2018 technically. So 2015, those are 5 different companies with 5 different payrolls, 5 different insurances, 5 different secretaries. We ultimately decided that it would make more sense for us to kind of restructure ourselves into one entity to make it more efficient, and we chose the entity of a Chapter 545 irrigation district, and reason being is it made us eligible for different types of grants and loans to get these projects pulled off. And eventually, it wasn't just the pipeline projects that we were talking about, but it was also an attempt to try to get the fish screening requirements off of the Wallowa River and the Prairie Creek side of our system, and ultimately just giving us different options as far as a rehabilitation effort on the dam. So 2017, a subcommittee was made within the Associated Ditch Company, made up of Jay McFetridge, Jesse Miller, Mark Butterfield, Dan Butterfield, and myself. And we were researching, again, how to turn ourselves into an irrigation district. And we went out and we petitioned all the farmers. We explained to them why we thought it would make more sense for us to be one entity that was more efficient and that was more eligible for different types of grants and loans and funding opportunities. And we worked really hard over 16 and 17 to get out there and get petitioned, and we overwhelmingly got the support we needed, and we formed the irrigation district, and we started officially running January of this year. And it's really prompted us to go back and really study the history of our water rights, understand exactly where our water rights are and how our system affects everyone in the county. And really that's kind of where the ball's been running from there. Is we're just trying to pick up and collaborate with ODF&W and the tribes on how do we address the fish issues that we're running into, and then also collaborating with the farmers within our system of how do we improve our system so that we can sustainably farm and irrigate and be here in the Wallowa County going forward. So I guess at this point I'm not sure what else I can add.
Great.
But I guess are there any questions as far as what districts do, how we function? I mean, one of the common things that another reason why we went to the irrigation district is it did make the transition from a very private company to a more public setting. So our monthly meetings are open to the public. Everything's kind of more out in the open, which I think has been really benefiting us because any questions the community have, they can show up to a meeting and ask us. And it's been really positive as far as our support with other farmers in the community, and also just our collaborations with the fish interest. I mean, it's been a really positive experience making this transition.
Judith, do you have taxing ability now as well?
The assessment side of it is, we were always able to assess on it.
Okay.
And we were always able to collect dues on it. So everyone that's within the irrigation district, we have, even historically, we had a flat rate of a certain dollar amount that you would pay that would go towards the infrastructure of your ditch and the dam itself.
Okay. So
And
that doesn't change much?
it did, well, technically it did on a legal sense of how we can enforce that,
Okay.
but generally no. Because we haven't had too much issue with people not paying their assessment.
Okay.
Because most people, especially on the irrigated side of it, they understand what the money goes towards. I mean, it's not a huge slush fund, it's going towards infrastructure.
Can you say, because the non-farmers in here aren't going to have any idea how much people pay for irrigation? Is there a standard rate or what?
Well, Wallowa County is absurdly cheap, which is good. I mean, it's been really beneficial to the farmers because we have a limited crop rotation. But if you get into the Columbia Basin where they're doing onions and potatoes, the water rate is insanely high. But up here, we're around the $12 to $13 an acre assessment per year. So depending on your farm size, that's really how much you would pay in assessments.
Okay.
And that also is dependent too on what infrastructure needs we have. I mean, this year we had several major projects that we just had to complete just so that we can pull off our day-to-day maintenance and run the system as we need to. And that's not going to change. So again, it's around $12 to $13 an acre is about what our assessments are for the district.
Can you explain the makeup of the members of the district and how decisions are made by the consolidated district, and whether all members have an equal say depending on acreage and water usage?
I can go through that. So when we first formed the irrigation district, it was based on what water rights were relevant to the district. And what was relevant to us was what was called the stored water. So the Wallowa Lake Dam, it makes sense that everything that the dam holds is what's called stored water. So we went back and we went with the district, the water master here, the OWRD representative, and we mapped out every acre that had stored water rights out of Wallowa Lake. And that was basically what the 5 companies prior to the irrigation district managed. But this was just a way to go back to and really clarify what property had and which ones didn't. But it's all based on stored water rights. And the way that it works is, I think it's in a voting sense, which doesn't happen very often unless it's something really controversial. But I think under 40 acres, you have 1 vote. Under 140, you have 2 votes. And then if you're 140 and over, you have 3 votes. Acres, sorry, I should clarify that. But that's basically how the voting works. And then within our district, we subdivided it into 5 different sections, basically, or subdivisions, right? And every one of those subdivisions gets to elect an elected representative to represent them. So that makes up the 5-member board that we currently have. And the map was drawn out and printed in the Lau County Chieftain. I'm sorry, I just don't have it on hand, but it's basically, they're pretty close to equal sizes throughout our system, and that's how we drew it up. And it was kind of close to how it used to be. I mean, as far as the 5 individual dish companies, it's close to that, but a little bit different. We couldn't exactly draw the lines like they were historically drawn, but it's pretty close. It's still a 5-member representative board.
What about the ditches that don't have stored water?
The ditches that don't have stored water are not in the district. They're outside of the district. So like the Granger that you guys are on, there were a few properties on it that had stored water that are in the district, but the ones that didn't have stored water still remain outside of the district. So again, we narrowed it down, and it was for simplicity reasons that we made the Wallowa Lake Irrigation District strictly those acres that were affected by the Wallowa Lake Dam. Because that was pretty close to how it was historically done anyway, so.
And we wanted to actually get the district done. We would have tried to go bigger or encompass this group or not that group. We never got it done. So we just decided to limit to the exact that.
But that could be a possible improvement.
Yeah, those other districts could always organize and become their own district and work with us. But, like Mark said, it'd been 10 or 15 years to get every, I mean, we could have encompassed the whole county.
You could have gone the whole county, but that would have been it would have been a long shot. So it was better for us to define the term of what acres currently have stored water. And that absolutely can change too. I mean, there's been interest on Granger, there's been interest on Prairie Creek, and other ditches within the system, Cove Dish, I mean, all the way down through mine of farmers that are possibly interested in the stored water. But the difficulty that we're having is just we have limited storage that, you know, anytime you get into a conversation of what would the increased storage be, well, it's kind of a hypothetical at this point. There's a lot of changes going within our system that there's just a lot of data we need to collect before we can make any good decision going forward on how to help out those other farmers. But
And as far as what the proposal is right now for funding and the improvements for it, do you have any
Speak up, please.
proposals for that you can talk about now? Just talking about dam and funding for the dam improvements, what is the current status of that?
we're basically in a lot of research mode right now. I mean, we're kind of just looking at what options we have on the table as far as, as far as privately financing it ourselves, but also it's getting the collaboration together with like the other fish interests, the other farmers. It's just, we're kind of in that mode right now where we're just getting all the groups together to kind of talk about what's the best way to move forward.
Can you talk a little bit about the history of the dam and where it started at and the changes made more specifically and what needs to happen now to make it more effective both for fish irrigation and recreation?
Yeah, so, and Joe did a pretty good job summarizing the construction of it, because there was original construction in, I think, 1916 or 18, and then it was expanded in 1924, I think. And it functioned fine, but there was no fish passage on it at that time period. And then I believe in the 1970s is when the Teton Dam failed, and that's when the Lau County Dam was looked at as a possible high hazard, and that's when it was reduced down to 72% capacity. And another interesting case as to what the max level of the lake is there was a lawsuit back in the late 1950s between the Associated Dish Company and the Milton Box Company that established what the max elevation of the stored water could be at the lake. And that's our goal, is to try to get it back to that level. And that rehab effort, we currently completed 2 engineering studies called the probable maximum precipitation and the probable maximum flow. And that is currently in the hands of our engineer to determine, okay, what does the thickness need to be, what does the spillway size need to be. And in regards to fish passage, it's, again, getting back together with all the fish interests and really trying to discuss and collaborate on what is the best fish passage that we can accomplish. And we're back at that stage of just restarting those conversations and relationships as a new irrigation district board. And that's currently the state of what we're doing is, we're planning on having a fish passage, but we just need to get the groups back together to determine, what one works best and what can we accomplish. Yeah.
Could you just provide a little bit of background on just kind of basic water rights? Are these stored water rights? Are they use or lose type of rights? And what do you do when the capacity is less than the needs from year to year, depending on snowpack? And then finally, what are the fish and wildlife water rights associated with the dam? And is the fish passage a regulatory thing, or is it a water rights thing, or how does that fit
I'm
together?
gonna have to start at the beginning here. Okay. So primary flows out of the lake are one thing. So we have primary flows out of the Wallowa River, and those are normally your May to June. And typically in Wallowa County, irrigation season starts May 1st and ends September 30th. So you have that time period that most water rights in the county are established on. And a lot of those historically, prior to the dam being built, were just based on primary flows coming out of the rivers. And then when the dam was built was when those acres got a supplemental right on it. And then to answer your question on what happens on a low snowpack year, really it's just a management thing that we've been trying to really narrow down these past 20 years. Is we have a really good dam manager right now that, you know, we're as conservative as we can be. We're not trying to be wasteful on anything. But when we do run into a situation of needing to ration, the last time we ran into this, we were still the Associated Ditch Company, and it basically said, okay, everyone has the rate from this point forward of a 1/2 inch per acre is about what we could do, or 1 wheel line per 40, I think, was about what that rate was. As a district, I think that those protocols are pretty similar, that if we run into a situation where the lake level's dropping pretty substantially and we still have a lot of people irrigating, we're gonna have to go on some kind of rationing system to try to be fair. But it changes, I mean, from property to property, because the time periods that we run into that typically are August, September. So every acre that has, say, like a small grain, like a wheat or a barley, they're typically done irrigating, so it's primarily a concern for, you know, the Timothy alfalfa guys. And, you know, and we're really fortunate. I mean, the farmers work really well together as far as communicating and making that work. As far as the fish passage, Jeff should really be the one answering this one. I'll make you talk on this one. But as I understand it, the entity that owns the structure in the river is responsible for fish passage. I believe that that's statewide. Is that correct? Okay. So the conversation, you know, anytime we were going to go down the rehab route, it was just something that needs to be addressed. And it's not. And again, it's not a farmer versus fish. This is farmer with fish. I think that it's been a good collaboration, and it's been really, anyway, it's good to get the groups back together as a new district and a new board and everything. So we're optimistic on making that, pushing forward. So
I'd like to add on the fish passage part, we need to have everybody agree on it, so that we don't start the dam and say, I'm just looking at you because you're the fish passage guy. But you can say, I don't like that, and so we're gonna sue you. And so we gotta have everybody say, yeah, we like this. And so when we do it, we do it. Don't we stop. Once we start building the dam, if we ever get to do it, it's a 3-month job.
yeah,
If we get stopped for a month, we lost a year. So we're all on the same page.
and it's the same thing with the fish screening requirements too off the Wallowa River. You know, we don't want to see salmon or endangered species fish in our irrigation fields. That's just not what we do. So we are trying to be as proactive as we can as far as figuring out what makes the most sense and then how are we going to pull it off. And that's just, we're back at that research stage, which has been enlightening. So.
Well, you were talking about the difference, the price differential down the river and here. And you might say a word about the competition for water. And somebody mentioned Nestle's beforehand, and I know that, you know, water companies have been controversial up and down the Columbia and various places. And then irrigation, the demand for more irrigation water downriver is a pressure on you here, I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not aware of what the state would even allow for those types of transfers to happen. I honestly don't. I don't know what the current OWRD rulings are on that. But yeah, there absolutely is interest. I mean, you have bigger farmers, you have those other downstream interests that, you know, water's a hot topic. It's going to be a hot topic.
And then related to that, of course, is we had a climate presentation a couple of years ago which said over the next 50 years, we're going to have a little more water than we have now, but less of it in terms of snowpack.
Yes.
Is that what you're working, the assumption you're working on?
So we did, this was through Wallowa Resources, not me, but we tried to do a countywide water study that took historical stream flow, snowpacks, and
Yeah.
everything like that. And then we also try to go in with climate prediction models as well. And yeah, as I understood it, it looked like the precipitation was going to increase. But again, that was just another motivating factor to say why infrastructure is important. And all the way from the dam, all the way down to our irrigation systems. And I think we've just come a long ways, especially on the irrigation system side of it, as being efficient as we can be with every drop that we got.
Did your study include any study of groundwater and maybe the possibility of supplementing from the aquifer?
Not very much, because it's not, because of the abundance of water that we have up here, not many farmers are looking to drill for water. Because it's expensive. I mean, the further you go down with a well, it gets a lot more expensive and less cost effective, especially for the crop rotation that we can do up here. So most of it was focused on, how farmers currently irrigate off of rivers and tribunes.
I know you're a long way from having those dams sorted out, but what about hydroelectric component?
There are several different ones. So there's several in our microhydros, is what we'll call them, within our own piping systems that we've been proposing on the farming side of it. And there's a couple options that we're researching right now, and there's still an incredible amount of hurdles on it. But in our upgrade package, there's a few possibilities that we could have correlating it with a fish screening project. There's a few hydro potential. So
There was hydro on it before,
Yes.
with the power.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then it had a fire in the 50s,
I think so.
and then they just shut it down from there.
Yeah, so we're researching ways to make that possible again. It's just, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Water's tricky.
One of the biggest obstacles right now with hydro is it doesn't pay very good. And if there ever gets to be some legislature where it pays a little better, it'll make hydro a lot more easy.
And it's seasonal.
Yeah.
We don't need seasonal electricity, because the other dams provide that off-season.
Yeah. But if it's a place where we can make sense, it makes sense. But a lot of the stuff, especially on farm, our biggest goal is getting tons off of the grid. So there's not as much hydro potential there, but there's an incredible amount of energy savings that we have on the on-farm efficiency plans that we have. The only hydro one that we possibly could have with resurrecting the Josephy powerhouse, and again, a lot of hurdles to go through. That one would be interesting because it would solve a fish grading requirement while doing a hydro station. But again, it's seasonal. When we're peak irrigating, it'll produce a lot, but in the wintertime, it's not going to produce a whole lot. But it still is absolutely worth researching and going for, so.
Do you guys have any type of in-stream, minimum stream flow below the dam at all? Is there any rule or regulation that requires a certain amount of flow? Because a lot of times you see it in August, September, when you guys are short and farmers are sucking and it's dry.
Yeah, so the
Water is down to 1 CFS or so, and it's barely flowing, it's pretty much dry.
The only area that I'm aware of that actually has an in-stream contract like that would be the Lostine, and that's with the Nez Perce Freshwater Trust, correct? And basically it shot for a goal of 15 to 18 CFS, I believe.
18, well, it's increased.
To 18, right?
I thought it was 25 now.
I think it's 21 now, but
Okay.
it started at 18.
Yeah, and we don't have a requirement yet, but again, it's going back to starting the conversations again. So we heard from several different groups that there are stretches that will allow that could use more water, but again, it's defining how much, when, and how to pull it off. So no, not yet.
Just
for
figure out how
us.
to manage that water, because you see, allow it there to drop, and it's prairie tree flowing at 50 CFS.
Oh. And there is an interesting reason for that. One of the other things I forgot to mention in my beginning spiel, which I can't believe I forgot, but is the whole flood control aspect of the Willow Lake Dam. We just got our inundation map back from Oregon Water Resource Department to show what would happen in a spring runoff or a dam break as far as property damages go. But what a lot of people don't know is when we're dumping water this time of year, when a lot of snow is coming off and the lake can't store anymore, we are dumping it right now, and there's a certain amount of CFS that the Willow River can handle before damaging property in Joseph Enterprise. So the rest of that has been flowed through our irrigation system through Prairie Creek, because then it comes in after Enterprise to try to reduce that flood issue. So that's a whole other aspect of what the dam has been playing a role that not many people know about.
How did that come into effect that the river can't have its natural flow?
Because people keep building closer and closer to the river. Yeah. And now there's a lot of business and property. I mean, if you looked at the inundation map of Enterprise, I mean, it's amazing how much property and businesses would be gone with a breach. But I would say a breach, but not necessarily a breach, but even just with a natural spring runoff.
Yeah.
I mean, the Water River could flood almost every year. And like I said, the farmers, and we've just been doing this voluntarily. Anytime the Water River gets close to that, we just take more down the Prairie Creek system to try to help out our neighbors. Yeah.
How safe is that dam at the moment?
At current capacity, at the current percentage, it functions fine. It does. I mean, because we're down at 72% and it's functioning pretty well, but it's still, we want to get to 100%.
So the concrete is safe that's there, even though it's old?
Yeah, we've done core samples, our engineer, and you may know more about it.
No, I was just gonna say, the biggest reason for the reduced level was because of the spillway. If we got the big flood, the spillway could block the bogs. That's what
Here.
the fear is.
Top of the dam.
And that's, it's not, if you
You
look
won't
at
wash
these
out.
pictures over here, you see water almost to the top of that dam, and it's still holding, and that dam hasn't changed since then, so it's safe, but that's the reason they reduced it.
We were told the core samples were, for a 100-year-old dam, were just as good as they were when they built it. They did a good job.
Yeah.
What are cost guesstimates, I suppose, the correct term for rehabbing or putting in an entirely new dam?
We got a range, and this is strictly just the dam. It's not the fish passage aspect of it. But I think, I mean, we've heard about 10 to 15 million. About what we've heard is the range for rehab to really get that thing back to 100%. But again, that doesn't include the fish passage part of the equation.
Or the screen.
Or the fish screening, sorry. That's another, because we would like to be able to fish screen it at the dam too, where it goes into Silver Lake Farmers and consolidated. But those, yeah, generally for the dam, we've heard the range of about, I should be more accurate, about 12 to 15, I think.
So who actually owns the dam right now?
The Malawi Irrigation District does.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And currently, Malawi Irrigation District is about 16,000 acres with about 170 users total.
Oh.
So,
Joe, wasn't there talk about selling water rights down the river to the ranchers in Hermiston or wherever to make enough money to build a new dam? Or?
there was, back in the 2010 to 15 range, and that was, again, I don't know currently what the state of Oregon even would allow that. And that's, anyway, it's kind of one of those things where if Oregon will allow it, why even research it? But as of, yeah, anyway, that was a plan. But currently, it's just we've reformed and recollected ourselves to try to find ways to, possibly even do it ourselves. I mean, we're looking at self-financing pretty seriously. But yeah, it's just trying to get all the pieces together, make sure that we can pull it off.
Do you know if the irrigation district is open to considering additional partnerships, say, to make it more of a multi-purpose dam, like say hydro production, and bringing in additional investment partners? Or do you think it's going to stick strictly with the current owners?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know any of that. I mean, it's just getting all the people back to the table to see what our options are. But I can't give a solid answer on that because I'm just not sure.
Do you have a timeline?
No. I'm kidding. We're doing quite a bit of the engineering. It just depends. I mean, there's just a lot of obstacles and groups we need to get together at the table before we can have a clear path forward. And we've been working on these pipeline projects for 7 to 10 years now, and I'm not very optimistic on timelines anymore, especially even young one.
I would say our new board, we were very motivated.
Yeah, we are. But
We're tired of seeing nothing happen over our lifetime, and so we're kind of turning over, looking under every rock and kind of evaluating all of our options, and open to somebody to come talk to us too. I mean, we're an open book and we're looking for any option we can muster up.
But I don't like to do timelines because I don't know. There's so many hurdles that can come up.
Has the irrigation district saved up money? It's been 100 years of them down there to plan for any time.
I was going to say, that's why we have ridiculously low assessments, because that was never done.
Yeah, and some of the past efforts too were very costly on some of the things we've researched and we've attempted to do. But no, we're back to, trimming the fat and getting our savings back out. We're actively.
We're very aware of that.
We're very
Are
aware.
you looking into increasing your water charges? Are you gonna, I'm looking at this.
We did this year.
Comparing those to like our farm district, we're looking at this area, like 65.
Exactly, that's why I said it's
And it's
certainly
like
cheap.
10% of that goes to upgrades.
Yeah, that's true. That would be quite a shock for the system. Going from 10 to 65 or 12 to 65, it would be quite a shock to our system. But I think that, if the infrastructure calls for it and there's bills to pay, we're gonna have to, incrementally increase rates because that's just what we gotta do.
We did raise rates a tiny bit on some of the ditches this year, and the other thing we did is we had a service charge. It was a $50 per user service charge, and 12 to 13 bucks an acre. We got complaints.
And
So, I mean, it's an education process to our people to why we need to up our price too. I mean, so we did up our price, it wasn't by much, but I mean, we got a lot of complaints by the little users, not by the farmers. The farmers, I mean, I'd say 75% of the farmers are willing to pay $10, $15 more per acre. They understand. But we do have other people that have an interest, and so we're trying to do it softly and educate why we need to.
Yeah, I mean, because out of the 170 users, I mean, how many of you guys think is farmer that is 80? Probably 80 of them are farmers, actually make their living off of land. Well, sorry, that's a rough estimate.
But they were a majority
That's a
of the
very rough
acres.
estimate, so.
I take that with a grain of salt.
But anyway, but again, like, prior to this, there were 5 different companies that assessed 5 different rates. So we figured for our irrigation district, year one, it's like, okay, let's just start.
We're required to charge everybody the same too.
Yeah.
As a district, where before the 5 different companies could charge whatever they saw fit.
Yeah.
But we have to, everybody is charged the same.
So who are these other water meters, you say, 80, roughly 80 farms?
Subdivisions. So it used to be farm ground, so if you go at Walker Lane and you look, all those subdivisions there, that was all farm ground.
1 acre, 2 acre.
Yeah, and when they were made historically, back in the 1960s and 20s, that was all farm ground. So as it got chopped up and subdivided, a lot more users came to the table, but none of them were making, very few of them were making their livelihood off of their property. But it's just a challenge. I mean, I'm not bashing on them. It's just, it's just trying to get them, like he said, educating them to what challenges we're actually facing and what your assessment's going towards.
So you're talking lawns and gardens? What are we talking?
Like 5 acre pastures.
Pastures.
Hobby
Horse
farms.
pasture.
Horse pastures, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, honestly, I mean, all those subdivisions on Walker Lane, that was all farm ground, but now it's, anyway, those are a lot of the users that add up quick. So, did you have a question?
Yeah, that kind of was my question. So what the non-agricultural user base was for the water. Are you saying though, to clarify one point, so like with the subdivisions that are in the city, they're not serviced by city water?
Well, they're not in the city.
Ah,
So these are subdivisions
okay.
that came out on farm ground.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not affected by city water.
Great.
I'm pretty sure most of them are. Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Around the city.
Yeah, we're all around the city, so.
Yeah, okay.
But are those folks using that water for their own personal use in terms of in the house, or is that?
I hope
separate?
not. I hope they're not drinking that. No, it's mostly just for like pasture, it's irrigation pasture. And they're not huge users either. I mean, the pasture guys, other than a few flood irrigators, they're not using a copious amounts of water, but they still have anyway.
Well, there are people on our ditch system that do use that water for
Wow.
We have better water.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's, yeah. Yeah, so the Lake Farmers, yeah.
Those don't have any type of fish blockage or screening at all.
Yes.
They just,
No, I was saying yes.
for the
Confirming
proposal,
you, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been up there before and I've seen a bunch of male or like 4 or 5 Chinook adult native spreads in the ditch, swimming in the ditch, and obviously all the smolts and everything went straight down the ditch.
Yeah.
I just wondered why there wasn't some type of screening off of those so that any fish coming up the Willow River don't end up in ditches.
And this goes back to when we started planning our pipeline projects, is we knew that we were needing, that was gonna be a need on it, and not just on the Willow River side, but also the Prairie Creek side of it. So that's why we were kind of pooling our resources together to say like, okay, how do we, when we implement these pipeline projects within our system, do we also address these fish screenings that we have to do? And it's just, again, trying to find, because like, to give you an example, I think the consolidated fish screen, which is the third fish that you don't hike by, I mean, I think that one was $1 or $2 million. And like I said, when you have 16,000 acres that are trying to pay for that and the dam, you gotta plan it out to make sure it works. Anyway, we're actively working on trying to get it. I mean, in fact, we're even working on doing the Prairie Creek fish screening here shortly too. So we're kind of phasing it in as we're going, as we can afford it.
And the other thing is when the dam goes in, that farmer's ditch conversion will be able to come out.
Yeah, we're planning on piping those two out of the dam, so that we only have to have one fish screen out of the dam. And then the other one that would be my piping is, piping the consolidated ditch diversion through the Joseph powerhouse. But that's a pipe dream, it's not, there's still a lot of research that we have to do. The point of diversion changes, Jeff knows that, would be a pretty big hurdle that we'd have to cross, as well as, anyway, it's trying to work out the details, because like I said, if we do the pipeline that resurrects the Joseph powerhouse, it's just gonna take a lot of time and research to really get that on the ground going, because we'd hate to install something for $2 million and then 5 years, you're like, hey, we have this way better option.
How about options for grants from the state or ODFW or federal grants?
So things for the pipeline, we've been working with Farmers Conservation Alliance, and for the federal side of it, we're working on a watershed plan right now, and the hope of us doing a watershed plan is it increases our eligibility for PL 566 and some other federal loans. As far as state goes, we haven't touched, it depends on where we're going. I mean, we're researching them actively and seeing what options we have, but a lot of the state grants, they're tricky. And especially when you're working with a lot of different names, a lot of different farmers, to get them all on the same page on those types of grants with those types of strings attached, it's just, it's tricky.
One of the problems with a lot of the grants is whatever they fund, they want that % of the water that they save given to them. And so, we do have to weigh that too. If we're gonna take some money and give up water, what's the value of that water? Is it worth more to keep it locally for local use, for fish use? I mean, we don't have an answer, but we are very careful to taking money that has a requirement that we have to let some of the water go that we know is one of the most valuable assets we have.
Yeah, and that was one of the tricky parts with Oregon Water Resource Department funding was I think the percentage of the project that they fund is the percentage of water that they keep, that they keep. So that's just, it's tricky because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Just talking about financing down the road, if the dam wasn't there and the lake wasn't there, what recreation value would there be there?
What flood
And,
control?
and what, and the people that are enjoying the lake that's there,
Yeah.
the boats, the recreational people, do they do any contributing to the dam? And is there a possibility of doing that, or does the state run that, or what?
I think that something like that takes time because we've had multiple conversations on that where, we're 170 farmers and subdivision that are responsible for a multi-million-dollar project. That ultimately affects the whole county. Right. Whether it's the flood control of how much property would save an enterprise in Joseph and Wallowa, or how many other farmers indirectly benefit from return flows. Yeah, there's a lot of people that benefit from the dam that either don't know they're benefiting from it or don't want to pay.
Don't contribute to it.
Yeah, and And that's another hurdle that we're having to cross, so.
On your preliminary planning for this rehab of the dam, do you see it getting wider, taller? How intrusive would it be on the parks and all of
So,
around there?
so again, it goes back to that, that 1958 lawsuit that went to the Oregon State Supreme Court, which was the Minton Box Company versus Associated Ditch Company. That established the maximum level that we can hold. So all the property on the west side of the lake, it should be in the property what elevation you should not build below. So all of those shouldn't be, if they're engineered correctly, there shouldn't be a negative effect on any of those properties. But as far as thickness, I believe it makes sense to me that they would want probably a thicker dam.
Which is all property that we own.
Which is all property that we own. We wouldn't be infringing on the state parks or any neighbors on that. So,
In fact, the state park did that. Because they built too low.
possibly. They claim they didn't, but who knows?
So from the original high water mark from, back when the dam was, they built up the second time, do you know exactly what elevation it would be?
4382 or 5? Is it just 80?
It's 4,380, I think it's
Okay.
Milton box.
That sounds.
Yeah.
Level.
4380.
Yeah.
And what was the max? That's the max that it's allowed to go to, or what's the max?
That's what it's allowed to go to now.
It essentially brought it down to that level because
Yeah.
they were keeping it a bit higher than that, and there was some erosion and riprap.
They were maybe throwing some boards in there.
4384.
Yeah.
If you want to see what the maximum level is, go look at that picture on the other side. They got samples.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just to give us some extra weight.
Yeah, 4384 roughly, not,
Yeah.
off.
In general, how are you addressing the loss of riparian areas along a ditch when you put it into a pipe? Is there any consideration of those? I mean, obviously they developed over time as a ditch being there.
Well, they're man-made.
Yes, exactly.
So defining, riparian area around a man-made structure.
There's no
legal-
riparian along any of our ditches, so.
No, and most of the pipelines that we're proposing, they're not eliminating the ditches. They're eliminating like spur ditches.
Oh.
I mean, like the one on the North Prairie, which is the one that Jesse's working on. I mean, gosh, how many miles of ditch is that gonna get rid of?
5 to 6.
5 to 6 miles. But again, it's not the main structures. I mean, because we ran into that in the late 80s when BPA funding was possibly going to give us a full pipe system. There was literally bumper stickers made called "Kill the Pipeline." So we don't touch the canals. We're not touching the canals. We are just looking for groups of farmers that notice big inefficiencies and trying to get those into pipes where we can just make it more efficient. So I mean, on Dawson, we're probably getting, Jesse, like he said, his will probably eliminate 4 to 5 miles of spur ditches and a lot of waste on that one. I mean, it's an incredible conservation project. And then like the Dawson pipeline that we're planning, I think is going to eliminate about 2 miles of canal. But it's just trying to, death by a thousand cuts. We're trying to get rid of every loss that we can.
So there is no legal protection of riparian areas around the established ditches?
No, if you want to see some interesting court cases, you go down to like the Deschutes area where they're, getting rid of miles of, ditches that have been there for 100 years. But it's interesting because, the subdivisions are the ones that don't like it. Because, they try to get historical status on a canal. And anyway, it's an interesting fight to watch from miles away.
On the pipeline that we're going to put in down in my area, we had to do a study to make sure that all the water flowing there was all contributed from the ditch. Anything that is natural, we can't harm, but there was nothing found to be natural down there. It's all coming out of the bottom of the ditch.
Yeah.
Is there a loss for evaporation or infiltration of the water out of the ditch into the aquifer?
Oh, absolutely.
And would that change then the aquifer that people are drilling wells in and things like that?
I would imagine it would have to be a pretty drastic piping situation to affect that aquifer, just because we have, drinker going through our system. But two, like the canals are still going to be there. So I don't imagine those ever drying up.
And you don't see yourself lining them or?
Well, we did transmission losses, and, you know, several of the ditches weren't that bad, but there were several branches of the tail ends of ditches that were pretty significant of how much acre feet we're losing a day. So we were trying to eliminate those massive holes. But, you know, the Dobbin, the Dobbin, the Creek, and the Big Bend, there's not a significant amount of loss seeping through the system, really.
We did look shortly at lining some of these, and the
Yeah.
cost of lining them was actually more than the cost of piping that water. And piping that water would get pressurized, so we have energy savings that helps facilitate paying for this pipe. By being able to take some pumps off the grid, the farmers are more on board with paying something for that pipe.
Exactly, because some of these acres that are doing alfalfa and Timothy, I mean, gosh, you're paying $50, $60 an acre in utility cost. So piping can help that as well, as far as getting electricity off of the grid. I mean, I don't know what the hydro potential, obviously the bigger the pipe we make it, the higher upstream we go, the more hydro would be there, but really the biggest benefit that we see is just eliminating irrigation utility costs on our individual farmers. So, yeah.
Can you talk a little about your relationship with the city of Joseph in terms of the stored water they're using, and will they pay for part of the cost of the dam?
Yeah, actually, they just renegotiated, so that's their turn to talk.
We're currently,
Turn around.
we're in current negotiations, who asked the question? We're in negotiations with them, but they do have a stored water right. It's on the 1967 multi-use right. And it's not a big renegotiation, it's only because they let it go on accident. And it was with ADC, and we wanted to clean it up and go with the district.
It's only 480 acre feet.
482 acre feet.
Yeah. We wrote a contract that was very similar to their previous one, and it is currently at their board and their lawyer to okay it. And if, in the event of a dam rehabilitation, they will be required to pay for whatever requirements to keep their pipe through there, any upgrades. But as far as paying for the dam itself, they will be having an annual assessment that mirrors the irrigation users. So they will share in the cost in that sense, but not a major cost.
It seems that even if there's a new dam, you're gonna have a lot of the same problems with water quality downstream in the Lao River that we have right now.
Yeah.
The main reason you're basically running the overflow, the high water at a certain time flow out through Prairie Creek, through that culture zone and back into the Lao River.
But that would be reduced.
Saving the flood control on Joseph Enterprise, so it's gonna be the same situation.
Not necessarily, because here's why I disagree, is if we had that increased storage, we wouldn't be having near the flood control issues that we would be having, and we wouldn't be stressing Prairie Creek nearly as much. I mean, if we had an additional 12,000 acre feet of storage, we probably wouldn't have wasted a drop this spring. Honestly, I mean, because that's been the limiting factor is, you know, we have state engineers on the phone with our dam manager every day while snow's melting, you know, but recommending how much CFS we need to be releasing so that we don't reach our max level too soon. And with 12,000 acre feet of storage or the additional 28%, we would not have to dump nearly as much. And then the stress on Prairie Creek, which you see it turning black this time of year, I don't think it would be nearly as bad. I really don't.
So when did it become another mountain, talk to us?
Yeah.
You may know this, but Macaulay Creek dumps in there too. When you add all those together, it creates a bigger issue where we could pull some of that out. It'd be quite.
Yeah, because the ideal situation would be if you guys wouldn't allow a single drop of the rest of the water back to Prairie Creek.
Oh, that'd be ideal. In fact, we've made active measures this year to put, you know, measuring devices at the tail ends of our ditches that our dam manager can read from his phone, just so we can get that narrowed in as accurately as possible.
We would love to not be sending water.
It's not our preference to be wasting water downstream. It really
But
is.
choice between the cities and their.
Joseph and Enterprise appreciate not flooding.
Also, yes, yeah, that's true.
When you pass water through agricultural lands and then back to the river, do you pick up agricultural chemicals, and do you have any way to monitor that?
The nitrate issue, I mean, I'm pretty sure we measure that on Prairie, or it is measured on Prairie Creek. But honestly, since we've gone away from flood irrigation, it's not been as big of an issue.
We did a study on that several years ago. There was no from irrigated, sprinkler irrigated ground, there wasn't any leaching to the river.
Not growing soybeans either.
Just have the potential to have.
We don't really want
Fraser
to-
River in eastern Oregon.
Yeah.
You know, filtered water out of the lake flowing down that river.
Yeah.
Like from Tully's River all the way down. If we could get it through.
Yeah.
Just can't.
So, Joe, I want to thank you and all of you guys. And I want invitation. I mean, this is wonderful to have this kind of transparency and know what the hell's going on, because, you know, there's a lot of talk all the time. And so just an invitation at any step along the way where you want a place to have a public forum and come out and talk about it and tell us what's going on. So, an invitation, we'll do that, okay?
Well, likewise, our meetings, third Tuesday every month, we invite anybody that's got a question or concern, come to our meeting.
Good. And then, since we pay high for these Tuesday programs, you get a little gift certificate here. And since you set Joe up, he gets it